What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down some new factors that are going to be affecting the way the market's going to be moving. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with Tesla and the markets. So as you guys can see, the market had a very, very interesting day. Tesla is still technically on a downtrend, right? It's been downtrending for quite some time. And the market tried to bounce it. It made an attempt to rebound only to get a rejection. We were correct about the bounce that was coming, and it did not end up lasting, which is one of the possibilities I did talk about in my video from yesterday. So the question remains, what's going to happen going into tomorrow? I'm going to talk about that over the next couple of minutes. Just know a couple of things. We're seeing a lot of headlines coming out about how, despite the fact that Tesla's overall deliveries did not meet all expectations, their Chinese sales were still very strong, as they saw a nice increase on a year-over-year basis. If you look at the numbers, they're actually up about 8% in 2024 compared to about 2023, selling more than 657,000 units, which is very, very good. So they did very, very well, at least from that end. I'm seeing some headlines about that. On top of this, there's been some more news that's coming out that Volkswagen EVs are about to get their Tesla supercharger access in June of 2025. This is not necessarily a new piece of news. We knew about this for a while, but many of these EVs were going to, gain access a little bit later than when they first announced it. So I believe VW announced this sometime like last year, and now the access is going to be starting in just a couple of months. So there's a lot of hype about that. Tesla has to be ready for the fact that there's going to be a lot more demand for their supercharger network, and Tesla's going to have to accommodate that with a lot of different ways. Now, one of the strategies they came out with was making megapacks. Or building these megapacks that are portable so they can be taken to more like rural areas, and they could also be recharged to help people in a lot of different ways. So I think that's going to be one good solution, and Tesla has to continue to expand this network as time goes on. Just keep that in mind, guys. That's going to be very important. Tesla also has some updated features that are going to allow users to give feedback about their overall superchargers, because it'll let people know if they've been vandalized, if anything happens, and then Tesla will take care of it. So that's something else that's very important. Anyways, when it comes to other pieces of news, just know that the market was very mixed today. We saw Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and the rest of these trying to be a little bit in the green. Whereas on the other hand, we saw a lot of different sectors from consumer durables to others out there a little bit more in the red. So a very, very mixed market, if anything. So just keep that in mind, guys. That's what things we're looking at least thus far. Now, on top of this, I want to mention that the market is still kind of mixed, but things could change going into tomorrow because we have important data coming out. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Just know that before the market opens at 8:30 a.m., we have exports and imports data. Then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the ISM services, JOLTS job openings and job quits. And all this data may cause a lot of volatility, especially the services new orders and services prices. So we'll see what all of this leads to. So be very, very open-minded for all of that, and then we'll see what happens as time goes on. On top of this, I also want to mention that there's been some more developments looking on what's happening to the market for tomorrow and Wednesday. So we have like more jobs numbers and such, plus the FOMC minutes on Wednesday. And then for Thursday, the stock market is going to be closed because of Jimmy Carter's funeral, sadly. He passed away last week, and it's very, very sad news, if anything. So I want to send condolences to his whole family and just remind you all that the market's going to be closed for Thursday, and then Fridays when we have more jobs numbers. But anyways, the main thing we're just going to focus on is Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. Look for more volatility, as we have the ISM services and the jobs numbers, which may cause more volatility. Besides that, earnings are going to be very, very quiet. There's nothing too serious for the week. We have a couple of them coming out, and then we have Jeffries on Wednesday, and then for Friday we have Delta Airlines. The fear and greed index is currently at fear. That's making up the majority of sentiments. We're not at extreme fear or neutral. We're just in the middle. Momentum is also at fear. It is once again shifting, at least to some extent. It was at extreme fear. Now it's just at fear because there were some buyers that defended, but they did not do the best of jobs at holding the market up. The put to call option ratio is dipping a bit. That's why we're at greed now, because we're starting to see more of these puts being closed as the market is shifting its overall sentiment to some extent. And then last but not least, volatility is at neutral. So the VIX has some gaps to fill below. However, for the shorter term, it does look like the VIX may attempt to bounce just a bit, and that could help or at least cause the market to essentially dip. And then if the market does dip a little bit, we'll see if we get some kind of bounce later on or not. But with that being said, what do I think is going to pan out for these charts? Honestly, Tesla's making lower highs. If you guys just look at it, we have resistance to watch around this 417.5 area, and we have the support to watch for very close to about 410. If the 410 zone near the 20 EMA fails us, we're looking for a dip back down to about 402, and then we have 400 and 394 as our supports below that. If we see the opposite and we see Tesla try to break past 417, we're looking for essentially 425 as our resistance, not to mention to move back up towards the 432 area to fill the gap. So as far as things are going, there's a nice inverse head and shoulders accumulation, but there is one problem with this. We got to break 425 to turn bullish. If we break 425, we're turning back up. If we lose the low of the day, if we lose 410, 402, we turn back down. So make sure you watch those levels just to be safe. Starting off, I think tomorrow Tesla's going to try to rebound. Looking at this wick right here, there's going to likely be some buyers that step in because typically in the mornings, as you guys can see, the volume tends to be higher when we open. There's going to be a lot of volume coming in, so I think Tesla's going to test 417 to 420 just to start things off. And then if we can't surpass 425, we could just make a lower high and come right back down to about 408. So please keep that in mind. I might just try to push, then make a move back down as the most likely possibility. I want to see Tesla break 425 to really start pushing. Otherwise, it just may make like a lower high, then come back down. So watch and see a test of 417.5 to 420. If we can't get above 425, though, then we could just kind of like pop and drop and start dipping back down to 410, if not 402 all over again. On SPY, I see something very similar. Now, SPY also happens to have this head and shoulders. If you guys look at this, it's still present. We have to break 600 and 602 to turn bullish. If 602 breaks, we will try to invalidate this. If not, we're going to likely see a dip. So I think what's going to happen is we pop a bit and start dipping towards our 50 EMA at 594. If that fails, let's look for 592 as our main support zone near the 200 EMA and the gap fill. And if that fails us, we dump all the way down to these lower levels, such as 590 or below. So look for a rebound and then a rejection to the low 590s as the most likely possibility to fill that gap. And we'll see if we get a bounce after that or not. So watch those levels very closely. For Nvda, we're technically on a nice range. We have to see if 150 holds or not. If this holds, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 152, and if it doesn't, we could be rejecting. I'm favoring this is going to try to push for 152, and then we'll see if we get a rejection and move back down towards 148 if 150 fails us. So look for 152 as a potential target. If we reject, we could be returning to 150. Overall, Nvidia is outperforming the market, looking stronger, and it could still try to push for 152 before it slows down. Bitcoin's looking more bullish, breaking out quite nicely. We have to hold above 102,000. If that's the case, we could get closer to about 104,000. But just watch resistance. As the higher we go, the tighter it's going to become. So Bitcoin could be going for the 104 mark before it starts to dip back down to 102,500 again. Overall, I think it's doing a fantastic job. For NQ, we need to hold above this trend line. As long as we hold this, we could be attempting to get up to 22,000. If we don't hold this, we could be dipping to 21,580. I think it might dip to the 21,600 zone, and maybe near this zone, near 21,580, we could try to bounce. I'm hoping that ends up being the case, a dip and a bounce. Looking at SPY, that does look probable, and I think that ES and then NQ could be doing something very similar. But it depends on if we could hold this trend line or not. If not, we could be dipping a little bit towards 21,580 before it tries to bounce all over again. The QQQ, we're technically on a downtrend. We could be dipping close to about 520 if we don't hold 525. So it depends on if this holds. If 525 holds, look for a breakout for 528. If that breaks, we're going to the 530s. If we lose 525, we're looking for a dip back down to 520. If that fails us, we have a gap to fill back down to 518. I think that what's going to happen is we pop a bit and start dipping towards that 523 area. If it does not hold, look for 520 to 518, then we could bounce after that. So it might pop and then drop back down to fill this gap here before it tries to bounce again. Because of what I'm seeing on SPY and the others, I do find that to be probable. What else is not so good for the markets is Apple. It pumped to exactly my target of 247, but then it was not able to hold above that, so it's rejecting. So this could be on its way back down to 242 if that does not hold, so please keep that level in mind. With that being said, as far as Tesla goes, there will be an attempt to rebound in the morning, but if we can't hold above 425, we might just make a lower high and start to reject all over again. So please keep those levels in mind, as there's going to be that risk of downside if this does not hold. For others out there, we have Netflix, which is technically on a downtrend. We're trying to hold around this 870 area, so as long as this holds, we're going to be looking for an attempt to get back up to 890. This may attempt a small bounce, and we'll see if we reject off our 20 EMA again, because we lost our 20 EMA here, rejected. We came close to it, rejected, hit this, rejected, hit this, rejected. So it might attempt to push for 890 before it rejects again. So watch that very, very closely. For Microsoft, we're actually pushing very well. We have to see if we could hold above 380. If that holds, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 388 and eventually 395. If we don't hold 380, we're going to be looking for a dump back down towards 370. So I think we look a bit more bullish and we're looking for essentially 385 and then 390 is our most likely possibilities. So I see some upside potential in this. For Celsius, we could be attempting to retest 29.5 up to see if we break that or not. If we test this and reject, we come back down to 28. If we break this, we could push higher. So watch to see what kind of reaction we get from there. For Supermicro, we are technically on an uptrend. We have to try to hold 35.75. If that holds, we're looking for attempts to get back up to 38.3. For Palantir, there is technically a weaker structure here. We could be dipping closer to 75 if that doesn't hold, so please keep that in mind. For Rivian, we are technically on a bit of a downtrend. We could be dipping closer to about 15.5. We'll have to see if we bounce off that. Otherwise, we're dipping to 14.84, so watch that very closely. So it might be a little bit of a dip. SoFi has to break 15.4. If we don't break 15.4, we could be turning back down towards 15 flat. So look for a test of 15.4 and see if you get a rejection back down to 15. There might be a little bit of a dip here looking at the structure, so look for a test of 15.4 and a rejection to 15 as the most likely possibility. We'll see if we bounce after that or not. For the Russell, unfortunately, we did not crack past 528. We might pop and start dipping to 520. I'm sorry, not 5. It was 228 I'm talking about. Excuse me, guys. 228 is going to be the resistance. We're not able to crack past that, so we're looking for an attempt to get back up down to 223.65. If that fails us, we're looking for an attempt to get down to 221, so please keep those levels in mind. AMD looks a bit more bullish. We have this imbalance to fill, so it could be looking for 132, and we'll see if we reject off that, especially as we have this gap to fill. So I think it does push a bit more for 132, and we'll see how it goes. ARM is also looking a bit more bullish. We have a nice bullish divergence. Going to be looking for an attempt to get up to 150. If that breaks, we have 152. That 150 to 152 range is going to be tough, and we'll see if you reject off that. But there is some upside potential. For coin, we're forming a nice bullish divergence accumulation. We could be looking for an attempt to get back up to about 293, then eventually 300. So we'll see what kind of reaction we get. If we lose 285, we're looking for a dip back down towards 278. But I favor upside for 294. For Amazon, we have a nice double bottom here. We have to try to hold above our support. I'm going to be looking for attempts to break 230 to start pumping more, so we'll give that some time to develop. For Meta has a double bottom right here that's forming, so we're looking for resistance around this 636 area. If we start rejecting here, we're going to be looking for an attempt to dip back down to 625. If we hold above 635, we're going to be pushing more, so I'll be watching this very closely, and we'll be seeing what kind of move we end up making. For Microsoft, we're forming a double top here. So the issue with Microsoft is that we rejected off our EMAs. We need to break 430 to turn bullish. If not, we're going to be dumping to fill this gap. My gut tells me it's going to pop to just under 430 and start dipping back down to about 425 as we still have that gap to fill. So just keep that in mind. For Google, we hit this resistance around this 198 to 200 area, but we were not able to hold above it. So it could be dipping closer to about 196, and we'll see if it bounces. So watch and see how things end up going. For GME, we're on a nice uptrend. We're trying to bounce here, so we're going to be looking for an attempt to get back up to 34. So make attempts to push more. For AMC, we look a bit more bullish as well. We're going to be looking for an attempt to test 4.1. If that breaks, we're looking for 4.2. So make sure you watch those levels very closely. For DJT, there is like a head and shoulders here, so I'm still a little bit concerned. We have to see if we could get back above 37.25 to invalidate it. If we come short, so it's going to try to push towards 37. But if we come short of breaking it, then we could turn back down towards 35. For the VIX, we're in a range right here. The VIX may attempt to retest this resistance around 16.6 because the market may see a bit of a dip. But then if the VIX gets a rejection and dumps here, the market could still bounce later on. So there's still a possibility the market bounces more. There might be a small dip coming at first, but then we'll see if we get a bounce. That's why I was talking about SPY and Tesla and others seeing a small dip, but then to be very patient nonetheless. The 10-year remains bullish. We'll have to see what the Fed does about that, how they're going to accommodate this, if they start buying back a lot of treasuries. And then also we have the dollar index. This is looking a bit more bullish. That tends to be bearish for the markets, so please keep that in mind. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. So that's going to be it for my video. As far as Tesla goes, it's done a good job at holding up, but just know there's going to be a risk of it dipping a little bit more. Looking at this trend, might pop in the morning and start dipping lower. So look and see if we could break past 420 to 425 or not. We might push to 420, then reject. So keep that in mind. Then we could be dipping to the lower 400s or even below that. So please watch your levels very closely. I really, really appreciate you guys so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow morning before market open to give you guys an update. Until then, thank you for listening and peace out.